Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe, and I hope you're all doing well on this Thursday afternoon. Almost forgot what day it was. Days go by so quickly, I don't even know anymore. But a big hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone joining me here on Behance today. I've got Sam and Kelly and Umacorn, Anime Elephant, that's a great name. Steve and Joe, Brett, Viviana. Who else do we've got in here? Ankita, Drissy, Wade. Great to see all of you today. All right, so today, I can't even find my browser. Today is day number, I also don't know what day it is. See, I just don't know anything anymore. I'm gonna hop over to my screen, I'm gonna stop talking, and we're gonna go through this whole shindig. So, Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge, day number 3. I had to check because, you know, Justin says, weekend now feels like a 30-minute lunch break. Isn't that so true? All right, so if you're brand new to the Daily Creative Challenge, head on over to behance.net/challenge/XD. You get all the information about these challenges. If you haven't pressed that big blue register button at the top yet, go ahead and press it so you're notified when new challenges are available. Now, how does this whole thing work? Well, every single day you're going to receive a challenge, at least Monday to Friday, except the first Monday. Confusing? A little bit. You get 9 challenges in total, and today we're on day number 3. Thank you, Joe, in the chat is letting me know today's day number 3. You can join us in our community chat, which is, where is our community chat? It is over here on Discord. There we go. We have a ton of designers. I think we have close to 60,000 designers in Discord. We have almost 2,000 online right now. We have some great mentors. We have some people from Adobe, some moderators. It's a wonderful place just to hang out, talk about the challenges, but more importantly, you can share your work in the challenge channel. A little bit easier to say than current challenge channel. I nailed it today, by the way. So, you can go ahead and browse all these different, oh, there's me. You can go ahead and browse all the challenges. There's some, look at the colors on this one from Marie's. That's just, it looks like the one that I designed, but she added different colors to it and just looks fantastic, right? And if you feel comfortable in XD, feel free to take these in a different direction, expand upon them, have fun with them. And I see some of you are already tackling day number 3. And you might be wondering, where did they get the inspiration for those challenges for day number 3? Well, this time around, if we take a look at the template, which by the way, you can download right at the bottom of this Daily Creative Challenge page, grab the template, get started right here, and it's gonna launch into this. Right there, let me make this a little bit, there we go. So in the template, there's also a link to a pre-recorded, more condensed version of these challenges that's on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Howard Pinsky. And if you take a look over here, there it is right there. So if you either want to get a head start on the challenges or you prefer watching more condensed versions rather than me talk in this live setting, videos are there for you. And you know, if anyone has been watching these shorter videos, 13 minutes, 12 minutes, 9 minutes, definitely shorter than half an hour. Let me know in the chat or on Twitter what you think of them. Do you want me to continue doing these for every challenge? Because they're a lot of work, but I have a lot of fun doing it. But let me know. All right, so hopping over to the challenge. So today we're going to be designing the Friends feed for a social media platform. And if you missed the first stream, the welcome stream, all the challenges this time around are mobile-based. The next set of challenges I'm going to be running in March are all going to be web-based. So we're switching it up, and these ones, they're not necessarily progressive, but they all kind of fall into that same category of a social media platform. And here's some inspiration right down here, and we are going to get started. All right, so here we have our artboard that we're going to be using for this particular challenge. And it's like we've been doing for the past few days, we're going with a very dark theme to these particular screens. So with this artboard selected, I can go ahead, set the fill right here in my properties inspector, and we're gonna go for a nice dark color. Now, of course, if you are continuing the challenges from the previous days, you'll probably want to use the same background color. And I would encourage you to save those colors in your assets. You can hop down to your libraries right here at the bottom. You've got your colors. Some of them come with the template pre-saved, and pop the colors in there. You can press the plus button, boop, And you've got your color, right? Perfect. All right, Joe says, I'm sleepy but good. Yeah, I am too. It's been a week. All right, so we've got our background, and again, like we did the other day, we may want to drag out some guides. So from the left-hand side of your artboard, drag out, look at that, 32, perfect. And then we'll go about 32 pixels on the right as well. And very quickly, before we get on to the good stuff, I'm gonna drag out an avatar photo right here. Let's make sure it looks pretty good. Sizing wise, I would say so. Now over to the right, I know a few of you have asked me, how do you design an icon like that chat icon that was present on some of my videos and my screenshots? Now, if I hop over to Nucleo, which is a third-party icon manager, there is this icon right here that I have been using. And I can just grab it, copy it, and paste it directly onto my artboard, change the color to white, there we go, and pop it into place. But some of you want to know, how do you create something like this in Adobe XD? Is it even possible? Absolutely. So let me do a quick aside to show you how you would create something similar to this chat icon. I would start with my rectangle tool, shortcut key R, and drag one out somewhere about here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and round out the corners completely. I'm gonna maybe pull this down just a little bit more so it lines up. And I'm gonna round out the corners. So we have nice rounded corners, a little bit of an area on the top that's not rounded, right? And we wanna convert this into a border-based icon. So I'm gonna turn off the fill. I'm gonna keep the border, set the color to white, and then increase the size to about 2, right? Next, we've got this little stem at the bottom for the chat. I don't even know what you call it. Stem? Possibly, maybe. We're gonna run with it. I'm gonna press the Y key on my keyboard to grab the polygon tool, and I'm going to drag one out. Doesn't have to be a perfect polygon. And I'm going to rotate it so that that little point is at the bottom. Now you can have it pointing directly down, or you can rotate it on the side a little bit, completely up to you. And you're gonna position it somewhere right about here. Now, with both of these layers in place, I'm gonna select both of them just like this. And at the top right-hand corner, we have our Boolean options. And if I press the first one, it'll combine them, it'll add them all together. And then I can go ahead and dive in here. Because it's non-destructive, I can move it around if I need to. I can make changes. I can round out the corners just a little bit like that, right? I can also round out the joints, so there's a little bit of a curve right there, and that looks pretty fancy. It's not exact. Now, of course, I can dive in and continue to make changes until it looks a little bit more accurate. That's not bad. That's kind of fun, right? And then on the inside, it's just a matter of dragging out 2 lines. So with the line tool, shortcut key L, drag one across like that. I'm going to increase the size to match 2 pixels. I'm also going to want to round out the caps just like that. And then I'm going to put it in the center and then duplicate one down and then squish it inwards. I'm holding down Alt or Option and there we go. And just like that, we have a chat icon that looks more or less the same as this one over here. There's a little bit of a, actually it's not too bad, but there's a little bit of a thing right there. I'd probably dive in, just make a very small change, but don't need that one anymore because we have our own chat icon. Then I can go ahead and add to this. I can grab my, let's say, ellipse tool, drag one out. This could be a notification, for example. Set the color to a nice reddish pink. Maybe I'll keep that border on there. And just like that, we are in business, right? Group it all together, turn it into a component if you want to, and pop it on the side. There we go. Perfect. All right, so just as cool as Illustrator. Possibly, yeah. Illustrator does have a little bit more vector tools than XD does, but for things like this, it absolutely works. So we are gonna move on to the highlight of today's daily challenge, and that's the friends list. So we're gonna have a bunch of our friends going down the artboard in nice big containers. We're gonna be using repeat grids, stacks, plugins, the whole 9 yards. So what I'm gonna do to start is I'm going to grab the good old rectangle tool one more time and drag one out just like this. Now, I'm not too worried about the size of this rectangle because we're gonna be using stacks and padding, so it's automatically going to adjust at some point. I am gonna go ahead and round out the corners Let's try 16 pixels. That might be too much. Yeah, 16 might be a little bit, it's not bad, but let's try 8. That might be better. Of course, because we're going to be using a repeat grid, we can always go back. I lost my cursor. There we go. We can always go back and make changes, and it's going to change to all of them. Now, for the background color, I don't want anything too jarring. I don't want it in our faces. So I'm going to just go for a nice subtle background somewhere right about there. It's going to blend in a little bit. And then if you want to, you can add a bit of a border. You know, somewhere right about here isn't too bad. Perfect. All right, now on the inside of this container, we want, Justin's saying 12 for the rounded corners, possibly. It's not bad. We can experiment. And of course, as we start, continuing to design this, we might change it. So on the inside, on the left-hand side, I want the user's profile. And on the right-hand side, I want more information about this user. So Aubrey's asking, can I use drag and drop autofill in a repeat grid with states? So you cannot. So that's one of the downsides of using components inside of a repeat grid. So if you know you're going to be needing to drag and drop images or text files, convert that afterwards into a component and add your states. All right. Whew, I'm out of breath today. I ran up the stairs right before this stream. So we've got our container looking pretty good. And over to the left, like I mentioned, I want a user profile. And I want a nice large user profile. So I'm going to duplicate this shape, Command Control D. And I'm going to pull it on in just a little bit on the top and bottom. And you can hover your mouse to see exactly how far it is. So right now it's 6 pixels. Let's try to get to 8. Almost. You can also hold down your Command key or Control key on Windows and resize by 1 pixel. There we go. That should be 8. Perfect. I'm going to move it over on this side. 7. And now we've got 8. And then drag this on in like that. And this shape here is what we're going to be using for our user profile. So let me very quickly just change this to a placeholder color. And what you're noticing at the top here is that the container in the background is 12 pixels, the corner radius, and this shape is also 12 pixels. But visually, because that shape on the inside is smaller, it looks off. So in that case, I'm just going to drag this back out until visually it does match. Somewhere in that area there looks pretty good. All right, now over to the right, we want some additional information about our users. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my text tool, shortcut key T, and click. And we're going to just start with a name. I'm looking in the chat. I see Steve, so I'm going to put Steve. And I want this a little bit bolder. I don't want it too bold because then it might be a bit distracting, but somewhere right about there, 14 pixels looks like it could work. There we go. And then maybe all the way over to the right-hand side, we might want the location of where this user is. So I'm going to duplicate this over all the way over this way. Now for this one, if I were to start typing, let's say Toronto, it's going to kind of fly off the artboard, right? So in this case, I will want it to be right aligned. And we can just go Toronto, Ontario, for example. And this is more secondary information, so I might drop the size a little bit and also drop the weight. Let's try regular. And possibly we can also experiment dropping the opacity to about 60%. And if we take a look at the preview, just to get an idea of how things are looking, that looks okay. All right, now down below here, we might want a very quick description of this particular user. So instead of a simple point text, we're going to click and drag across our artboard like that. And we're going to left justify it. And this will be just placeholder text. And what you can also do is use a plugin like the Lorem Ipsum plugin to also fill this in. All right, hopefully you can all hear my clickety-clackety keyboard. Please, can you do the boop? Boop. Hold on, there we go. Oh yeah. All right, so this one, probably 12 might work in terms of the size. I might want to bump up the line height just a little bit and move it on down a touch. Perfect. All right, now the last two things we might want in this area are buttons, maybe to challenge this user to whatever it might be, and also maybe to message. So I'm going to grab my rectangle one more time, drag one out. I'm gonna go to about the halfway mark, somewhere right about here. Doesn't have to be perfect, and then bring it on back a little bit. We're gonna round out those corners. And for this one, this might be the main call to action. So we want a nice bright color, maybe something like red. You gotta be careful with red, because red can sometimes indicate an error. But if it's like, maybe the highlight color of this application, and maybe if challenge is like a, in your face type thing, red could potentially work. But in general, gotta be careful with it. And then we're gonna go ahead and type out challenge. Now this, I'm gonna want to set to about semi-bold or even bold, because again, it's the primary call to action. I'm gonna make sure to center it, and there we go. All right, so we've got our first button, and now we want an additional button. Now, because these two buttons more or less belong together, they're always gonna be present at the same time, we want to turn these into a component and use states. So I have both of these layers here selected. I'm gonna press the plus button at the top right-hand corner to turn it into a component. And then I want to create an additional component. So press the plus button one more time, create a new state, and this will be called outlined. And now I can dive in here and design that outline state. Joe says, Boop is sacred, to be only used for repeat grids. I agree. So I'm gonna turn off the fill, turn a border on, bump up the size a little bit, and change the text to message. So now I have my default state and I have my outline state. I can go ahead and duplicate this over to the right, change it over to outlined, and there we go. Beautiful. All right, so we've got I'm gonna move this in just a little bit. So we've got some of our content, and we wanna make sure that when we make changes to this particular area, everything's gonna resize as you would expect. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna select all these elements here, everything that makes up this section. I'm gonna pop this into a group. So Command or Control G. Whoa, that hit everything. That was H and not G. Command or Control G, I'll just call this friend. And then within my properties inspector, I'll want to turn on stacking, which will automatically also turn on padding. Now, what you're gonna notice is that it turned on as a horizontal stack. And this isn't necessarily what we want. In some cases, maybe. This will allow us to dive in and move this to the other side. But in this particular case, it's not what we want. So let's actually go back. And what I want to happen is when more content is added, or when some of this content expands, this background image or this avatar will enlarge with the background. So in this case, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna make sure to avatar, and I'm gonna change this to container. Just keep things organized a little bit. I'm gonna select both the container and that avatar on the left-hand side and put them both into a group. Command and Control G, and call this background. And now what's gonna happen is when I turn on a stack, it's now going to set it as a vertical stack because it's looking at that background layer. It can be a layer, it can be a group, it can be a Boolean object, a lot of different things. But what's gonna happen now, if I start, let's say I add more lines to this, it's automatically going to enlarge because it's part of that background, right? So if I wanted to, let's say, add an element right above here, maybe a progress meter of some sort, let's grab the rectangle and draw one out. And you're noticing everything's enlarging as you would expect. I'm gonna round out the corners. This will be, let's see, something, maybe we'll go pure, almost pure black, right around there. And then what we're gonna need is maybe a bar on top of this. Now watch what's gonna happen. I'm gonna duplicate this, Command and Control D. It popped it on top, and that's because it's part of a stack, and it's doing exactly what it should be doing. So in this case, what we want is we want another bar on top of this bar. So we wanna put this into a group, which I'm gonna call progress. And now if I go ahead and duplicate this, we don't have that problem. So I can change this to our red, use my eyedropper, and drag this on back. Okay, so we have our container looking pretty good. We've got our friends, we've got all of that fun stuff. And things are a little bit squishy. So I can just dive in here and make some changes just to make sure everything is not squishy. I'm holding down my Shift key and just pulling around. There we go. And now we want to add additional friends going down our artboard. So what we're going to do is with this single friend group selected, I'm going to go ahead and press the repeat grid button at the top boop, there we go. Does the boop work? Oh, I have like a limit of 1 boop animation down here. It doesn't, hold on, maybe I can reset it. Just for all of you. There we go. All right. So we have our first friend, and now we have it inside of a repeat grid. And now I can go ahead and just drag out additional friends going down the artboard. I can just keep going. I can go hundreds of friends if I wanted to. And I can adjust the spacing if I need to. 24 pixels looks pretty good. So we have a lot of different friends going down our artboard. And like I showed you yesterday, we can either create the artboard, or we can make the artboard longer so we can scroll like this, or we can pop it into a scroll group like this, right? Completely up to you. Depends on the situation. So we've got a bunch of friends going down the artboard, but we want to make some changes. We want to add some pictures. We want to add some names. We want to change the progress bar. So here's how to add content to your repeat grids. First, let's start off with the image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over to Finder, and I do have the amazing toy faces up and running. So I can just start grabbing some toy faces. You know, of course I could grab one and drag it in, and then grab another one, drag it in. But you can also just, let's say, how many do we have here? 1, 2, 3, I don't know, we have a bunch. It doesn't really matter. One, let's grab this one, and this one, 2, 3, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't think we'll need more than 10, so I'm going to grab 10 of these images and boop, pop them directly into the grid. And it just populates, which is wonderful. The same thing can be done with plain text documents. So I do have a document here with a bunch of first names. I can do the exact same thing, just like that. Or you can also use a plugin. Now, you can't manually override things. So if you're noticing, I am not Martina, right? I am Howard. So I can just dive in here and make those changes as well. And this could be, we'll keep it at Johnny. Why not, right? Now, for the text layer on the right, Toronto, Ontario, this is the location of that user. We can also use a plugin to fill these things in. So I have my repeat grid selected. I'm gonna hop into my plugins down at the bottom, and I do have the repeater or repeater. I still don't know how to pronounce it. I have this plugin installed, and I'm gonna go to generate. And right over here, I can select which layer I want to populate. So in this case, it's the Toronto, Ontario layer. If I did rename that to like location, it would show up there. And I can scroll down. We've got, let's say, location. And I can put, let's say, city and country code. Now, there are some things I probably don't need, like state abbreviation. I mean, maybe, right? Maybe I can get rid of country code. State abbreviation is nice. Probably don't need an address. And I can go ahead and press add. And it's going to add a random city and state directly on these repeat grids, which is great. And of course, you can do the exact same thing for your description. You can either bring in a plain text document, or you can use a plugin to generate, have some information in there. Lorem ipsum or this repeater plugin, doesn't matter, right? So the last thing I want to show you is this progress bar. Now, if I were to dive in here and make changes to this, increase this progress, what you're going to notice is that it also increased it here and here and here. And that's by design. When you dive into a repeat grid and you make stylistic changes, if I change this to a different color, actually that's a bad example. If I change this, if I move this over, you're gonna notice it's moving it over in all of them, right? So that's by design. Now, going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think, I forget who it was that asked in the chat about component states inside of a repeat grid. What you want to do in this case, if you do want to override certain elements, you want to turn it into a component. So I have the progress group selected. I'm going to press the plus button over to the right to turn this into a component. You can do it basically in any repeat grid cell, and it's going to automatically turn it into an instance of the main component. This is a fairly recent change, because sometimes inside of a repeat grid, there would be at least one main component. But now I can dive in here and make an override to this particular component, and it will not override it anywhere else. So I can make this one a little bit different, this one a bit different. And if you do need to change the styling of this particular progress bar, you can right click on any of them, edit main component, it's gonna pop it over here, and you can make changes. So if I wanna change this to blue, for example, maybe I don't want the rounded corners for whatever reason, right? And you're gonna notice it pushes those changes. But you know what? I like those rounded corners. I like the pink. There we go. So that is how you create a friends list in Adobe XD. Of course, you can take this in many different directions. You can make, two going across and a bunch going down. You can have fun with it. If you feel comfortable in XD, definitely go crazy with it. Knock yourself out. So a big thank you to everyone who has joined me. Aubrey and Umacorn and Joe and Steve and Ruth and Sam and Bruce and RB and Hugh. Great to see everyone. I'm going to be back tomorrow with day number 4. We're going to be designing an emoji picker. It's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you all soon.